It's on my page. Y'all can share it to your pages. My Facebook page. Okay. Oops.
2 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show, episode 315. And tonight we will be talking about the new film, The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. Want to just say to everyone, you have to see this. This is not something someone can tell you about. You have to experience this for yourself. I was at a pre-screening in Pace University. It was, I don't care who you were, there wasn't a dry eye in the house after watching this film. Before we get started, though, I want to thank the County of Westchester who appointed yesterday Black Westchester Day, September 10th, 2021. Now Black Westchester Day. Thank you, County Legislator Christopher Johnson. Without further delay, believe it or not, it's not an optical illusion. We have my partner in crime, Damon K. Jones, in the house. Yes, he is really here. He's live and living color. He's really here today. Yes, yes. Say what's up.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
And we got the co-host with the most, Dr. Bob, in the place to be. Say what's
AJ.
up.
D, what up, D?
Yo, Dr. Bob.
Good to see you, baby.
So we got a full show for the first hour. We have the director and the producer of the film, The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. And then we'll be joined by Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. himself around 7-ish. And we will have the actor who played Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. in the movie, Frankie Faison, joining us somewhere around 7 as well. I would have been great to get Morgan Freeman, but since we can't, he was recently on an episode of Joy Reid's The Readout, and I'm just going to play a little bit of it up until, he speaks first. And I just want to share that real quick with everybody because she sets up everything real good for those who are not familiar with the case.
28-year-old black veteran with a history of mental illness accidentally set off his medical alert device. As the New York Times reports, police were dispatched to his home for a welfare check. And 90 minutes later, after he had been taunted with racial slurs and subdued by both a taser weapon and beanbag rounds, Chamberlain was shot and killed. No officers were charged, with a grand jury declining to indict in 2012 and jurors rejecting the family's wrongful death suit in 2016. But last year, a judge gave his family renewed hope, rejecting a previous ruling that the officers were protected by qualified immunity. This harrowing instance of police brutality is portrayed in the new movie, The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain.
Mr. Chamberlain, this is Candace Wade with Lifeguard Medical Alerts. This line is being recorded. You just received an activation from your pendant. Do you have an emergency? I'm not getting a response from you. I'm going to dispatch emergency services now.
White Plains Police. We're here for a welfare check.
Open this door! You're not coming into my home! Help me! Help me! I need help!
I'm joined now by Morgan Freeman, Academy Award-winning actor and the executive producer of The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. He's also the president and co-founder of Revelations Entertainment. I'm also joined on the phone by Frankie Faison, the actor portraying Kenneth Chamberlain, as well as Mr. Chamberlain's son, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go to you first, Mr. Freeman, and I'm trying to be calm because I am a huge fan of yours, but I'm going to conduct this interview with all the dignity I can muster. How did you come to this project?
My partner and I, Laura McCreary, she's co-founder of Revelations. We saw the movie, I don't know, sometime back during the pandemic in 2020, I think. Yeah, this is 21, isn't it?
It is.
And it was just so profound and such a tour de force for Frankie. And the story is so immediate. It's the true story of this man, that the movie is based just on that truth. And it's just, I don't know, it brings out again such an unnecessary situation when we involve police in a situation that does not call for any police. Kenneth's inadvertent triggering of his 911 health life alert thing should not have triggered anything that would lead to his death unless he was in some sort of health problems, and he wasn't. This is just why we shouldn't send the police to do a job they're not trained to do.
And I just wondered, that sets up the situation so well. And like I said, it would be great if we were able to get Morgan Freeman himself, but I mean, this just that. Damon, would you like to now? I came back from Atlanta in 2014 when we started Black Westchester. Damon grew up with Kenneth Chamberlain, knew Mr. Chamberlain, and has been by his side since it happened in 2011. So I wanted to, give you a chance to speak on what you just heard and what Mr. Freeman said.
No, I think Brother Freeman was right on point in saying that we have to stop having police officers do what they're not trained to do. The story of Kenneth Chamberlain should be a training tool. This movie should be showed in every academy, every police academy. But I think more important that this movie is coming out, especially this happened in Westchester County. And we went through this whole phase of police reform, and everybody's talking about reimagining the police. And this movie is coming out after the reports, and we are still questioning what changes will be made in the training of police officers. You know, and I say that to say, last night I ran into a police officer, exactly, a white police officer, and he said, man, these new cops that are coming on the job are going to hurt somebody. They're going to hurt somebody because they're not being trained properly. So, we are still having this conversation, and it's a blessing that the Chamberlain movie, which from my perspective, being there from the beginning, it literally got drowned out by the Trayvon Martin incident. And certain civil rights leaders felt it was best to push the Trayvon Martin incident and not really touch with the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain, and that's why it didn't make the national news and was long with the outcries, because it didn't make it. You had an audio tape. Like, what better evidence, would you have of an audio tape of police officers taunting a senior citizen for damn near an hour, and the only thing he did, and ended up killing him, taking his life, and the only thing he did was set off his life alert by accident and making racial slurs against him, and it didn't make national news, but also it's a testimony to Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., who for many days I was on the phone with him in his struggle to get justice for his father, to have people discuss what happened to his father. Politicians were scared, local leaders and pastors, black, white, or whatever, were scared to stand up and speak truth to power when it came to the incident. Even after the recording was made public, it was still not a real outcry here in Westchester County or all throughout the United States, on what happened to this man. So this movie is a blessing, and I thank these brothers here for making this movie and making a great movie at that. I saw it twice and I cried both times, and you will cry even knowing what happened. The title of the story is the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. When you watch the ordeal play out, and even to the end when you know he's going to die, man, if nothing happens to you in your heart, if you don't walk out that movie theater saying things have to change, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem.
Just before we're going to bring in the director and the producer. You alluded to the tape, and we're going to play like 2 minutes of that just to give people a little feel of what, because there's some people that never heard. If you watch the rest of that MSNBC article interview, Joy Reid, who says she lives in Jersey, was not familiar with this. So that shows you just 60 something miles away or whatever in Jersey, she wasn't aware of the situation much before the movie. Here's a little piece of the video that has the tape on it.
I tell people, good, bad, or indifferent, my father loved me, I loved him. I did plenty of things that he didn't agree with, that he would really get on me about. But one thing that I can always say is that no matter what I went through, my father supported me, he encouraged me, he let me find my way.
This is your health center for Life Aid. Kenneth, do you need help? Mr. Chamberlain, you pressed your medical button. Do you need help? Mr. Chamberlain, I'm not getting a response. I'm going to notify someone to come by and help you now.
White Plains Police Officer Cianci.
Good morning. This is Life Aid reporting a medical alert.
Medical alert?
Yes. This is your health center for Life Aid. Mr. Chamberlain, do you need help?
Yes, this is an emergency. I have the White Plains Police Department banging on my door, and I did not call them, and I am not sick.
I'm attempting to cancel a dispatch for Kenneth Chamberlain at 135 South Lexington.
They're gonna make entry anyway.
I am not opening the door for them.
They just want to make sure you're okay.
They're trying to hurt me to hurt me.
They're not going to hurt you, sir.
I know I'm going to get hurt. I know that. I know I'm going to get hurt. You're not here to help hurt me. You're going to kill me, huh? You're going to beat my motherfucking ass. I'm a 68-year-old man with heart trouble, and you're going to beat me. Oh, you got your gun ready. Oh, they got shotguns, y'all. They can fight that on too, huh? They have stun guns and shotguns at the ready. They have their locked out. They're planning on taking me to the White Plains Police Department and beat me and then kill me. I want you to got it. If you got to go alone, leave it alone. Open up. Leave it alone. Open up. Leave my house. Leave my home. Don't do that, sir. Don't do that. Don't do that, officer. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. I'm telling you I'm okay.
I wanted to show up to that point to give you all a little bit of what was caught on tape. And you've heard Damon and I often talk about the racial slur, and a lot of people hadn't heard that for themselves. And I wanted to play that at the beginning of this to set the tone, because, I mean, you know, we had the former District Attorney Janet DeFiore said that's not a hate crime because it was just a distraction for them to get his door off, which is unacceptable. But we've talked about that extensively. We'll talk about that another time. But I want to introduce David Midell, the director, and Enrico Natale, I hope I pronounced it right, the producer, and he acted in the movie and played one of the officers. Enrico, I just want to say real quick, so we had posted something, and a cop who's the head of the Yonkers PBA, he was saying some not flattering words. He was saying that, you know, as far as he was told, that there's a lot of things in here that were inaccurate and you know, and it would, you know, just put in for the movie. And one of the best comments back to him, and I forgot who responded to him, he said, yeah, it was Hector Santiago from Yonkers. He said, yeah, they put a nice cop in there. That was kind. That's what wasn't accurate in the real thing. So, and you played that cop. So I just wanted to share you that, because I'm sure you didn't see that exchange on Facebook. So
yeah, it's the idea of what police officers could possibly be in this country, and it'd be nice.
So you are the producer, and David is the director. Say hello to the people, David.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the film and the Chamberlain family, and thank you all, AJ, Damon, and Dr. Bob, and everyone at Black Westchester for putting a bright spotlight on this case, because you just finished saying that, you know, this case did not get as much national attention as many of the other cases, as much national attention as it deserved. So I appreciate you giving it that spotlight.
One thing Kenneth Chamberlain has always hashtagged, the world will see. And I think even when he first started doing that, before y'all were really making the movie, I don't know if he truly understood. Now with this movie, the world will see. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be harder for them to shove things under the rug. You know what I'm saying? And act like nothing happened and brush it off. The world is about to see. What drew you to this story, and what made y'all decide to get involved in this project and do the story?
Yeah, I think sometime back in 2017 or so, you know, issues of alleged institutional racism in law enforcement, criminal justice practices, implicit bias, you know, they've been kind of a topic of national discussion for a while. And I was reading about different cases, different individuals who had experienced these kinds of things. And I came across the story of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., and it really resonated with me for a number of reasons. I have a background in special education. I taught students and adults with disabilities for years, with emotional and behavioral disorders, and I worked with people with mental health challenges for a long time. And as well as the fact that I myself am actually on the autism spectrum. So I come to it from that personal perspective as well. But one thing that we had to do working with populations of individuals with mental health challenges and developmental disabilities is we had to go through very extensive crisis management training. We had to learn how to de-escalate an escalated situation in a way that kept us safe, kept the individual safe, and kept everyone around the situation safe. All the while making sure that everybody feels respected and empathized with and valued. And that's really the bottom line. The bottom line is all about empathy and respecting the person that you're communicating with. And it was just so blatantly obvious to me how terribly misguided and ill-prepared and uneducated these officers were in their interactions with Mr. Chamberlain. It was very clear that they did not even give him the basic respect of being a human being who deserves to be spoken to with respect and empathized with. So that's really why it first kind of resonated with me. And from there, I actually reached out to the Chamberlain family. Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. Responded, and we started a conversation. And it's really those conversations that have propelled the film forward. The Chamberlain family and Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. have been the most important voice behind the film the entire time. They've been, deeply involved throughout the development of the script. We actually had them come out to the set. They had a chance to meet the entire cast and crew, as well as, of course, Frankie Faison, who plays Kenneth's father. And then they were, also deeply involved throughout post-production, watching different cuts of the film, giving their perspective, notes, those kinds of things. So the most important thing about the whole process for us all along has been to make the Chamberlain family and Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. the primary voice behind the film.
Absolutely. Enrico?
Yeah, I mean, when I came across it, David had written the script, and it was just as powerful on paper as it is when you see the film. I finished reading it, and I called David right away, and I said we had to meet. And we met up the next day, and I said, we're making this movie. We have to make this movie. And I immediately wanted to talk to Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., and the three of us got on, and we talked about it, and we talked about the story. And I think it was like 2 months later when we were shooting. It happened very quickly. And since then, we've just gotten really close with Kenneth, and we care about him, his family, what he's going through, and this case. And we really do feel like the nation needs to see this. And I think our goal was to make a movie that can really hit you in the stomach a little bit and make you perhaps understand what it could be like to go through this. And we want people to understand that this is something that we need to talk about, and there has to be a serious discussion on what we can do to make sure cases like this never happen again.
I think one of the things, especially following George Floyd, and the national response to the George Floyd killing, I think this film, beyond the Kenneth Chamberlain case, will help take the conversation to the next level, help keep the conversation going. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that don't understand, and I mean this film is just, seeing it on the screen is just unbelievable. I know Sandy Barnaby and myself and 2 or 3 others, we had asked Damon that night when we saw it at Pace. We had never met Mr. Chamberlain, and watching the movie, I felt like I'd met him for the first time. And I was asking Damon, how accurate was that? Like, you knew Mr. Chamberlain. You know what I'm saying? He was like a second father to you. You knew him. You followed him into corrections and into the Marines. You know what I'm saying? So we were talking about that. I don't know if Damon remembers that conversation when we asked him how accurate. Yeah, it was.
I mean, it was a beautiful. Listen, Frankie did his thing, man. It was beautiful. I mean, you know, if nobody will ever know personally Mr. Chamberlain, you see him in this movie. You definitely see him in this movie.
That was really that was the goal in many ways. It was interesting. I was speaking with Enrico and a couple of our co-producers earlier about this, that, you know, it feels to me like, you know, we as the filmmakers, obviously we never met Mr. Chamberlain. And we feel like we've gotten to know him through this process. But it's an interesting feeling, because we feel like we know him better than we know many of the other people involved, but also we know him the least out of anybody who's been involved, because we've never actually interacted with him. I was just asking, another childhood friend of Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., who did meet Mr. Chamberlain, his father. I was just asking him, what was he like? Because we've heard a lot of stories. Kenneth has told us a lot about his dad, who his dad was outside of, the events of November 19th. But it's never quite the same as actually sitting there and talking to somebody.
Dr. Bob, I didn't in the intro, I forgot to give you a chance to say what's up and say what's up to the people. Do you have a question or a comment on where we are so far? I mean, some input that you want to add?
Yes. Dave, it sounds like this project was well underway before you actually met Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. and began to involve him actively in the project and the making of the film. So I'm curious to know, given what Morgan Freeman said about just how sparing the coverage was of the Kenneth Chamberlain story, how did you come to find out about it? Because it seems like you, in many respects, you were ahead of the curve, and somehow they became aware before it began to garner national coverage.
This is for me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we actually did. The very first thing I did was actually give. I actually messaged him on Facebook, because I didn't have his phone number or email address at the time. The very first thing that I did was give Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. a call, because I didn't want to. Enrico and I have had the chance to work on a couple different true stories at this point, and we always, it wouldn't be right for us to move forward with a film without the blessing from the real individuals, without the blessing from the family or the community or anything like that. It just wouldn't be the right thing to do. And I know that happens. Sometimes filmmakers move forward with stories even if they haven't spoken to the real individuals involved. But the way we approach our stories, it just wouldn't feel right to do that. So that's actually the very first call that I made. And the script really developed not only from the documentation, the audio and video evidence that's out there that you can find, that just based on Googling it or searching on YouTube, but much of the script was derived from the conversations that we were having with the Chamberlain family, particularly Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. So he really was involved from the very beginning. And it was, when I started reading more about this case, I was surprised that I had never heard the name Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. before, because what happened to him related so strongly to the national conversation that's been raging at this point for years about the changes that are needed in police practices and criminal justice, the criminal justice system. So I was actually surprised that I had not heard this name before. And that's one of the things that prompted me to do even more research on it and find in this case, it was the Facebook page for Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. and message him. But yeah, it wouldn't have been right for us, or it wouldn't have felt right for us to move forward with the story without getting the blessing of the family. If they were not comfortable with it, we would have gone in a different direction and worked on a different story.
Absolutely.
In terms of finding out about it, David has a very journalistic approach to these things. He scours the internet, finding the right thing. So yeah, and there was a bit of coverage. CNN covered it. There was a few places that covered this very briefly. It didn't get the the Trayvon Martin type of response, and so we were able to. David was able to find it and reach out to Kenneth for his blessings.
One of the things that I want to talk about when you make a movie. That's a challenging process as it is. As a writer, I know just writing, capturing, painting pictures of words. But when you do it about a person, a living person, and you try to get as accurate to that person, talk about that the challenges of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, and it's really a balance because our goal all along, obviously, has been to make a film that is an honest representation of what happened and an honest representation of the individuals who were involved. But at its heart, this is still a fictional narrative film that is based on a true story. So what we really ended up having to do was, what any filmmaker who makes a film that is based on a true story does, which is, you take the documentation and the evidence that exists, you take the real factual information that you have, and you integrate that into the script, but then you also have to sort of fill in some gaps here and there with your imagination. There is not a complete record of what happened in every moment of this incident. There are moments that are recorded through audio and video, and there are eyewitness accounts, those kinds of things. But even many of the eyewitness accounts differ. The police had their story that they kind of put out into the media, and the residents of the building had another story that differed from the police officer's story. And then the forensic evidence also told a story. And many of the facts that the forensic evidence suggests conflict with the story that the officers told. So because there isn't one definitive set of facts about exactly what happened in every moment of this incident, we used our best judgment to take our best educated guesses about what may have taken place here and there, while relying on the factual documentation, the audio and video evidence wherever it existed.
I think
Go ahead.
I think one of the most powerful moments for me was when Kenneth Jr. came to set, and he walked into our main set, which was Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s living room. And that was just such a powerful moment for not just David and I, but the entire cast and crew, to let him kind of sit in this place. And it was such a beautiful moment for Kenneth as well, to kind of look up and see these pictures of his father on the wall and crosses, and how the room looked. And it was just I know it was a really powerful moment for him, and but I know that the cast and crew really took that seriously to try to really create something that felt as real as possible.
And I asked that specifically again because those in the police community have paint the narrative, this is just a movie that's not accurate and stuff like that. And I wanted them to hear that from you on the process as well, and as well as Enrico, the introducing a character, the character you played, which I don't know if that character actually existed. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, it's funny. Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. just talked about this last night. The film's there to get people to understand that this story existed, that this is something that happened. You can literally go on YouTube and type in Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. audio, and you can listen to everything. The evidence is out for anyone to listen to right now. Like, this movie, this spotlight on this story, the whole reason for this is for the nation's eyes to turn and look at this story, and then they can go off and do their own research, which is totally and completely available for the world to see. Our objective as filmmakers is to make a compelling story something that can really stand with someone. You can feel the story in every way and want to talk about it afterwards and want to do something about it afterwards. So there is a bit of, we have to tell a story. We have to tell a powerful story. And my character, Rossi, really is the, I always say he's the what if. He's the what if character. That person that thinks with compassion and empathy and has empathy. And, to me, I wish everyone as far as had a little bit of Rossi in them, and thought about that. But, it really begs the question of, why are police officers, first responders to wellness checks? That's something that really doesn't make any sense to me. Why are police officers the ones to respond to wellness checks? It just doesn't seem accurate in any way. It doesn't seem like that's what they want to do, and it doesn't seem like that's the best help for the person who's in potentially a crisis situation, medical. They have something wrong with them medically. So, there's lots of questions that I think this movie poses. And we want people to talk about this and have a conversation about this. And as Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. said, so that there will never be another instance like my father.
Absolutely. I know Kenneth will be on in probably a half an hour or so, but I know one of the things, and Damon and I have said it, mostly Damon have always said, he made this happen because he would not give up. He continued to fight. He continued to fight. He continued to tell that story. He continued to try to make news, do press conferences, the vigils. He kept his father's name alive to the point where y'all got involved, and now this film is in existence. And I want to again compliment Frankie Faison, who will be on later, for the amazing performance of. Some people are saying this might be one of the best performances of his life, and he should get an Oscar nod or something. I know for those like the White Plains Police Department and those who have tried to bury this story, they better hope that don't happen, because that will only broaden the appeal and interest of this. If there's an Oscar involved, even a nomination, even a discussion of a nomination will definitely bring more attention to this. Dr. Bob.
Yeah, so I know you guys said that you wanted to be true to the facts surrounding this case so that you could have the most accurate depiction possible on screen. I'm curious, since this is so much about police mismanagement, misconduct of seemingly routine calls, I was curious to know if you were able to talk to any of the officers involved, and how much to get input from them besides what's available in the public record to shed light on their motivations, their thinking, perhaps so that we could get a more complex story than we often get, which is really one of, I guess, police indifference and apathy. And ultimately inhumanity. How much cooperation did you have from the police or any of the police agencies here in Westchester?
That's a great question. We did call the White Plains Police Department, but we were never successful in engaging in meaningful communication with them. What we ended up doing was we had many law enforcement officers and former law enforcement officers that we consulted throughout the making of the film, as well as first responders. First responders of, like, my brother, for example, is a firefighter, so I was able to ask him, because my brother, being a firefighter, he was a paramedic for many years as well, and he's worked very, very closely with police in his community on first responder type calls. And he was able to give me, some really valuable information, as were many of the other police officers or former police officers that we consulted. They were able to say, no, this doesn't make sense, because they have to make visual contact with the person, or they will get in trouble. or no, this isn't what they would say here. They would phrase it this way. The protocol would be this.
Even showing our cast how to breach the door.
Yeah.
Your brother came in and showed how to use the equipment and to properly hold it and all those things. And so,
Right.
we had some officers, because we shot this in Chicago, who came out and helped all the police officers and how to carry themselves and how to put their hands, where to put their hands and things like that, to the mannerisms that take place. But yeah, White Plains Police Department didn't want anything to do with us. They didn't, they weren't interested in talking to us.
White Plains, they don't often want anything to do with Black Westchester either. Go ahead, Bob.
Right. Yeah, it was an interesting process, and I think in terms of making sure that this was accurate and honest to the events, as Enrico mentioned, we for a couple of different reasons, we decided to go ahead and fictionalize all of the officers. One of those reasons being legal reasons. We decided to essentially fictionalize the officers, not use any real names, not use any real likenesses. We composited several of the characters. We felt that creatively and in terms of what would be most meaningful and salient for the audience, and what would really enable the film to reach audiences in the first place, is fictionalizing the officers in terms of their names and likenesses, compositing several of them, those kinds of things. But what I would say is that even though the officers are technically fictionalized and composited, all of the actions that they take and the dialogue that they speak is either lifted directly from the documentation or inspired by the documentation.
So, yeah, one of the reasons that we try to add complexity in any kind of creative endeavor is precisely to arrive at a better understanding of why people behave the way that they did. And I'm curious to know, the real issue that confronts everyone that we're all perplexed by is why exactly did these officers take a course of action that resulted in such a tragedy? And I'm wondering if anywhere in your documentary exploration or the broader aesthetic exploration of the characters of the officers, were you able to come to any conclusions about the logic by which they handled themselves?
Yeah. I would say that we weren't able to come to any conclusions because we weren't inside their heads. But going through the documentation and speaking to police officers, speaking to first responders, we did get a sense of they need to do this. They need to do this, according to the hierarchical structure of the police department. This is the protocol. If they don't do this, they will get in trouble. So we what we ended up doing was coming up with, based on the documentation and our conversations with other police officers and first responders, we essentially came up with a set of motivations and objectives for each one of the officers in the film that is all a little bit different. For example, you can see that the first few officers that arrive at Kenneth Chamberlain's apartment, one of the officers is the sergeant, and he, comes to this situation with a certain group of preconceived notions and perhaps implicit biases. And he has a job to do. He wants to get the job done and leave, move on to the next thing. But throughout the process of what he thinks all of these officers in some way or another, the officers in the film, the characters in the film, and I would guess that most police officers, when they are in the field, when they do something, they believe it is the right thing to do. And yes, situations get out of control, situations escalate, and that's certainly what happened here. But I think it was a process of, based on the documentation and our conversations with other officers, first responders, figuring out how each character was going to approach this situation, figuring out how each actor was going to approach trying to accomplish the objectives that the character was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I think even speaking into that, as the character that was pushing back, but when there were a lot of even though there were actors in the room, I felt squashed. I felt belittled, and I think that speaks into a pack mentality for police officers. They're brothers. They're all there. They're all there to protect each other, and that all makes sense. But in this situation, with someone who's unwilling to cooperate with them, I think it became something of a he was kind of testing their patience, and then it became like personal for them in a lot of ways, and it shouldn't have. And this is where we talk about de-escalation. How to de-escalate a situation. I don't think that these officers were properly trained in that in any single way. I don't think that they understood how to de-escalate a situation where someone had they were called there for a wellness check. They were there to check on this man's wellness, and all they did was escalate the situation to the point where he ended up dead. And like that to me is the number one problem that we need to talk about is, police officers need to be trained in de-escalation tactics if they are going to be first responders to wellness checks, which is another thing that I still just don't understand at all, why they're first responders to wellness checks. So to me, de-escalation has to be something that is really talked about in the police force, and having a better understanding of how to not just use force in every situation, and how to, because I understand they need to protect themselves too, but in a situation like this, it just blows my mind that this man ended up dead.
As I welcome Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. to the show, there was a question for the director and for the producer, either one of y'all that want to handle this. It said, did you touch upon how it should have been handled, considering the person they were checking on did answer them when they arrived? What is the protocol when someone answers them? Do they have the right to enter anyway? That was the question. If y'all touched upon that, and if y'all can answer it at all.
Sure. The approach that we took, especially, given the background that I have in crisis de-escalation, nonviolent crisis intervention, I've been involved in crisis situations. Nothing exactly like this involving police officers who have, weapons that are capable of administering deadly force. The situations that I've been involved in have been in educational settings, so a little bit different. But I've seen these types of crisis situations get resolved smoothly and safely, where everyone feels respected, everyone feels valued, nobody is physically or mentally injured, anything like that. And I've also been involved in crisis situations that have spiraled completely out of control, where injuries do take place and people are not respected and valued. So I've seen it go both ways. And I think I was able to draw on those experiences to create, a group of characters, all of whom approach this situation a little bit differently. For example, Enrico's character approaches it from the mindset of some of the more modern training. He's a new officer. We make the point that he is brand new, low on the totem pole. His character has probably received some more modern training and understands a little bit more how to interact with somebody in a way where they feel respected and they feel valued, particularly individuals with mental health challenges. I think that each one of these characters approaches it a little bit differently, and I was able to draw on my experience of being involved in situations like this to kind of specify the approach that each individual character might take.
Brother Kenneth, welcome to the show, one. And two, I've heard you speak on this before, and if you could speak on it now, do you believe his address has played a part in the attitude and the treatment of your father?
We really need to go back and rehash that. I mean, most certainly. My father lived in Winbrook Housing Complex. This is a low income neighborhood. It has high crime rates. You go to the end of Lexington Avenue and make a right and go up 4 blocks, you're in Scarsdale, a more affluent neighborhood. They wouldn't have done what they did to my father had he lived there.
Damon, you want to comment on anything?
No.
Ask any questions?
We know, that these incidents happen to Black and brown people all over the country and for decades. I've known Black law enforcement officers that were police officers in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And the only thing that changed that actually making people talk about it was the invention of the cell phone. Look, I mean, you'd have thought when they recorded the beating of Rodney King that we were going to come around the corner on police accountability, and that didn't happen. So it's an unfortunate situation that we still have victims of police criminality, and I say police criminality because what these officers done to Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. and other people are actually should be crimes. Like I don't understand, how it could just go down and nobody is ever held criminally for their actions when they say that they are trained professionals, right? We know trained professionals do not act like that. That was on that audio. That's not trained professionals. That was just a mob, right? So, I think we still have to continue to have this conversation. And I thought it was great to see Kenny on MSNBC because technically, mainstream media, they do not have strong Black men that represent these families on TV like that. They usually have the mother, the aunt, and everybody get along. We're gonna pray for Jesus and all that other good stuff that sounds good with forgiveness, but having a strong Black man talking about accountability. Let's have accountability for these officers because they supposedly be trained. So if they're trained to do something like that, we have to really look at the training. And I think Morgan Freeman said something key. We got to get the politicians in there that's going to do it. And we're still fighting, trying to get politicians in there that actually going to do it. So this is great to continue the conversation.
I have to say one thing about Kenneth Jr. and from David and I, we've talked about this all the time. When we just talked to Kenneth about this the other day, Kenneth is such a powerful voice right now, and I think that this country needs a little bit more of Kenneth Jr. talking, because even him on MSNBC, he was just so powerful. Every one of his statements was just wonderfully said. And really, truly, to be in your position and to be able to have, the grace to talk the way you do, Kenneth. I mean, it really is something special to look at, even and to hear. And for David and I, we've wanted to thrust kind of Kenneth into the spotlight. We want him to talk. We feel like this movie, in more ways than anything, is a gateway for Kenneth to be able to talk to the people of this country and have his voice be the one that's heard.
What does the making of this movie mean to you, Kenneth?
Well, Damon and I were talking about this the other day. when I say that there were so many days that I sat on the edge of my bed crying because I needed help. I didn't know who to turn to. I was completely lost. Even the day that my father died, I called Damon that same day. You know, he was the only one that called me back. You know, nobody else did. People were talking about some of the more notable activists out there, the big names, and they said that they were making phone calls and sending emails to them, and no one came. But it just wasn't in my nature to give up. I just said that I have to continue to fight. So I had to be very strategic. It was just fortunate enough for me that I received an inbox from David asking for a family member, and he and I began to have a conversation, and he said that, you know, he wanted to help me and that he makes movies. So to have this movie now complete, I say that, you know, I want the world to know what happened to my dad, but I also know that it's bigger than my father. And I always say that it's bigger than Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. And I'm not just going to yell Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s name. I'm going to yell Kamal Flowers' name. I'm going to yell Samuel Cruz's name. I'm going to yell Jonathan Maldonado's name. I'm going to yell those names, Detective Christopher Ridley, because people have to understand that these are not isolated incidents. So I'm hoping that this film is going to kind of reignite something where people will have real honest discussions, that maybe some of these elected officials will finally wake up and really begin to hold individuals accountable who are committing these types of egregious acts. I mean, right now, we have a New York State Attorney General who's done absolutely nothing for families that are impacted by police violence. I'll say it now. I'll say it every time I speak, because people need to know that she is in office doing absolutely nothing. Suing the NYPD does nothing for families that are impacted by police violence. It does nothing. We want to see some of these officers held accountable. So if nothing else, and you know, you'll hear me repeat this over and over again, do I want this film out there? Do I want people to see Frankie Faison in action? I most certainly do. Do I want him to get awards behind this? I most certainly do. He's always played a strong supporting role, and now he's taking a lead role. And to me, that's big, and that means more to me than he actually knows. But outside of that, David and Enrico know that I always say, let this film be a teaching tool, if nothing else, on what you should not do when dealing with people on wellness calls.
Question for Kenneth, Enrico, and David. How did it feel when Morgan Freeman decided he wanted to be involved in this project?
Amazing. It was amazing. You know, Morgan Freeman is as big as a name as you can get in the world. And to know that he watched this movie and was so moved by it that he wanted to be a part of it means everything. It really was an incredible moment for us that someone like Morgan Freeman took the time to watch this film and was so moved by it to want to be a part of it. And he's going to give us a bright light spotlight on this film, which is exactly what we need.
His team at Revelations Entertainment is also excellent. They're very, very passionate about it. Laurie McCreary, his business partner, and Gary Lucchese, our other executive producer from Revelations Entertainment, are very, very passionate about the film. Very passionate about the message that Kenneth wants to get out there about raising up Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s name, and in the first place, making sure that this never happens to anyone again, and pushing legislators to make changes in our criminal justice system that will prevent things like this from happening again.
Kenneth?
Well, having Morgan Freeman come on, when they told me that he wanted to be involved and come on as an EP, I mean, I was ecstatic. I mean, I couldn't wait to meet him. It was I gotta meet him. And to be honest, one of the first things I did after I said thank you, I said, I have to say this to you, Morgan, because you are one of my favorite actors. I've watched your movies, and I said, there's no way I can be on this call and not say this. And he said, what? And I said, take the locks off the doors, Mr. Sams. The enemy is here. Code 10, code 10. And he laughed and he said, thank you. He said, thank you. I mean, I always call Frankie Faison Commissioner Burrell from The Wire, but it's great. And I will honestly say that prayer changes things, because you guys know you've been on this walk with me. You, Damon, Dr. Bob, you guys have been on this walk with me. You're not new to anything that I've experienced, from my father being killed to me being harassed by law enforcement. I mean, you guys have been there. So the walk. And to have someone like Morgan and Frankie come on now and say, we're going to help you, that means something to me. That means a lot. And I see my movie dad is on the screen now. What's up, Pop?
It's all good.
Welcome to the show, Frankie Faison. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. We were talking about the incredible job you did in portraying Mr. Chamberlain. And it was great to meet you at Pace when they had the screening and actually get to talk to you. Tell everybody why you wanted to get involved in this project, what made you get involved in, and the experience of playing as Kenneth Chamberlain.
Oh, well, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show. Good to be with the group again.
Yes.
To me, it was really a no-brainer as soon as I read the script, that wonderful script that David wrote. I was immediately attracted to this character and to this story. And this is without knowing anything about who Kenneth Chamberlain was, anything about, they said that this was based on the story of a true man, a true experience. But I just got the script and I was seeing it as a story. And it was passionate, compelling, and character driven. And I'm an actor, and anytime I see something like that, I want to participate. I want to do. So that they had me from page one with this character, because I felt something connected in me with this character, and I wanted to portray it. And the rest speaks for itself, I guess, because I've had a wonderful ride, a wonderful tour, met some wonderful people, and have enjoyed. And I hope that my performance in this show can help Kenneth's family, and can help his friends, and can help the society, the world at large, can help the law enforcement, and can help communities to understand that there needs to be a conversation so that this kind of atrocity will not happen again.
How was your feelings about the whole, I guess as an actor, and I heard them ask you this at Pace, I think, as a Black actor, you sometimes might not get the kind of attention that the average Black person get when stopped by the police. Have you had any interactions with the police before, doing this movie that of a negative nature like that?
Every interaction I've ever had with the police has been a very, very positive one. And I think it is because of my celebrity, quote unquote, sort of status. My wife says, Frankie, it's you, it's the way that the law enforcement officers treat you and the way that they treat everyone else. And she was correct. We had an example of this the other day when they were doing a sting operation in my community. And they were stopping cars and pulling them over, and I decided to go up there to see what was going on. And my wife said, "No, don't go. I'm afraid for you because you being a black man going up there, anything can happen." And I got up there, and I was gone for about a half of an hour, and I called. I was playing a little joke. I called. I said, "Baby, I'm surrounded by at least 8 or 9 police officers. And I don't know what's going on." And she got all upset. And I said, "Don't worry, I got somebody taking the picture for me." And then I got home and I don't know, will you be able to see this picture if I hold it up to you?
You might.
Tell me if you can see this. If you can see that, this
I
is
think it's a little light though. But thank you. Look, you're surrounded by the police.
I'm surrounded by the police, and they were there because they wanted to, shake my hand, get, acknowledge that they know who I am. And so it could have been a completely different experience for someone who was not recognizable. So to me, I want it to be fair for every human being on this planet, that they are treated equally by law enforcement. And that's why I think that's important and significant to tell the Kenneth Chamberlain story. Because he was an ordinary man.
Right. Did doing this movie change your perception on how the police interact with African Americans?
Yes, because I got a chance to in portraying this and filming this, I got a chance to experience firsthand what it would feel like to get shot by a taser, to be rushed by 5 or 6 police officers, to have them slam you to the ground and then lie on you and compromise your breathing and what you, because it was in a controlled environment, but I felt every ounce of weight that was on me and applied to me during this part where they're at the end of the film, where they're trying to, I guess, subdue me. 6 or 7 burly police officers trying to subdue an elderly senior citizen who has been tased and sandbagged. I felt it. And the cries were real when I'm crying for help. And when you ask for your mother and you ask for, it's real. So that, when I see that now, I understand it. When I saw George Floyd being compromised with the knee to the neck, I understood it. I understood it to a completely different degree than before I had done this film. And
Dr. Bob,
very scary.
Dr. Bob, any questions?
Yes. Brother Faison, firstly, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to meet you personally, though virtually. So much of the importance of Mr. Chamberlain's life doesn't transpire in the final minutes that he's on the planet with us, but rather the years and decades that he spent prior to that event. And I was curious to know, because I haven't seen the film, although I do know of some of Mr. Chamberlain's doings from talking with Kenny. I'm curious to know, to the extent that you were able to capture some of his bigger personal background and how you were able to portray that and draw on it in those key scenes that so much of our attention is focused around. I would imagine there were flashbacks. I get the sense perhaps from the trailer that there were flashbacks to an earlier era in his life. And so I was curious to know how you were able to integrate all of that and make it an even more compelling story, not just about a death, but the loss of a precious and accomplished life.
Mm-hmm. Well, a great deal. I'm an actor who really depends on the writer to do the work, to give me the information so that I can portray a character. And David was so thorough in giving me the ammunition I needed, the fuel I needed to move forward with this character in flashbacks with his family, with his son, and his was it his sister, and all the people that were involved in his life. And that's written, it's very subtle, but you get it because there are several phone calls in which you learn a wealth of history about who this man was, how caring he was, because time and time again, when he speaks to his family on the phone, he goes from being totally in a chaotic state of mind to a calmness because he wants to put his family's mind at ease. So he says to his son, "Don't come. I'm fine. I never know what those police officers are going to do." And he says to other people, he says, I'm okay. I don't know what's going on, but it's, and it's like a split personality. And it's given to me. And even in the flashbacks, in the sounds, you hear them in your head. It's all that information was spoon-fed to me by the wonderful writing of David. And I just tried to act that stuff and not get in the way of what was going on. Simplicity is the key, and that's how I was able to continue the journey and portray this character. If that makes any sense to you,
Damon, any questions?
I just want to, I've been on this ride, and I'm excited for the movie, and I think it's almost a vindication of the struggle that my brother Kenny has been going through, because there have been many hours and many late night calls and morning calls and wellness checks and trauma checks, and to see this movie, and like I've told Kenny all the time, I said, "You did it, man. Like this really tells a lot of people, and we've been in a lot of offices of high-powered people that wouldn't touch the killing of his father. We sat in senators' offices and talked to local politicians that wouldn't touch the killing of his father, and this vindicates his struggle, but it also puts a spotlight on them, that they still have a responsibility and accountability to do something, to address this. And Frankie, man, I've been a fan since
Absolutely.
coming to America.
Absolutely.
And and you've done a great job, man, and God bless you. And I hope, for even on your end, that you get recognized for this role that you put your heart and soul in, and that, like I said earlier, if people didn't know who Kenny's father was, when they watched this movie, you introduced them to who he was and who he is, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
thank you. Yeah. For me, that's very important because that's my job. My job has always in this profession been that of a storyteller, someone who tries to go out and do good, honest work in portraying of any character that I'm portraying. And this is by quite a long shot the most difficult character I've had to portray from beginning to middle to end, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, because it was no opportunity to not be there and become that man and portray that man in the way he needed to be portrayed and introduce him to the world at large so that they could see a human being. And I learned yesterday that when watching the film, that on the other side of the door is this guy who is an innocent man. He's just, he has no idea what's coming at him from the outside or why it's coming at him. And then all those forces, the people who are paid to take care of us and provide for us, they are the ones that are inflicting this situation on this man. And that to me it brought tears to my eyes just thinking about that. So I thank you for your words, and I really just hope that people will see Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. when they see this film, because I tried to do the best I could.
Yes. Yes.
I told Damon that night, and I said it before you came on the air. It was a couple of us at Pace. We had never met Mr. Chamberlain, and we felt like we met Mr. Chamberlain that night at Pace when we watched that film. And talking to you, we felt like we met Mr. Chamberlain. And I've also, like Damon said, been a fan from Coming to America to The Wire to Pops and Luke Cage. I mean, you know, very, very big fan. Love your body of work. So I hope that you are recognized for this powerful role, the powerful portrayal of Kenneth Chamberlain. Kenny, anything that you want to say to Frankie, or ask any questions you want to ask him, or
I don't really have any questions to really ask Pop. David and Enrico, their next film is going to be my story.
Kenneth sounds like he's joking about that, but I mean, everyone on this call obviously knows, but Kenneth, I mean, I have never met someone as strong as Kenneth, and who has fought through so much adversity to keep his father's name out there and make sure that do everything he possibly can to make sure that this does not happen to anyone else, make sure that changes are implemented, make sure that there is some type of accountability. I think Enrico and I both, just all through this entire process, have really been in awe of Kenneth's strength and his resilience in the face of so much adversity due to so many things. That it's really, I think it's inspired us to work that much harder on the film and become that much more invested in the film. I think, given that ultimately the film is on the lower end budgetarily, what people have commented to us over and over and over again, that they are shocked and amazed that we were able to create a film of such high quality and such a moving film on such a low budget. And I think that speaks to the way we were inspired by Kenneth's strength to just continue working, put more and more and more blood, sweat, and tears into this, and remain patient and resilient through every roadblock, every obstacle, all of those kinds of things, because that's exactly what Kenneth has done. And this, Kenneth's story over the past 10 years would make an equally, if not more, compelling film or series, whatever it might be, than The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain, because his fight since that day, that was really the beginning of another story. And it's not over yet. It continues to this day. So I know he jokes about that sometimes, but that story is absolutely an essential part of this and worth telling. And that's why we hope that Kenneth's voice remains the most important voice behind this film, and that it amplifies his voice that much farther.
Here. Yep.
I want to so for those that don't know what we're talking about, I want to take a break real quick, and I want to show the trailer and then have y'all speak on the other side of this when the movie's coming out and where people can see it and stuff. So here's the trailer of The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain.
AJ, before you sign, I gotta sign off because I gotta go to work soon. But
all right.
I just wanted to show my love and thank you, and Kenny, I'll talk to you on my way to work. So
as always,
if
it's not you, Kenny, it's me. So yeah,
exactly. But thank you guys, man. God bless you, man. And we're gonna be pushing it. We're gonna be rooting for it, and we're gonna make sure people get out and see it. I go to work and I talk about it, You know, I work in the same building in the penitentiary that Mr. Lynn worked in, and I remind them guys all the time, you know, that he was a correction officer, and y'all should come out and support this and support. So, and I'm gonna go talk about it tonight. So, peace out and blessings, y'all.
All right.
Thank you, Damon.
Here is the trailer of The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain.
Mr. Chamberlain, this is Candace Wade with Lifeguard Medical Alerts. This line is being recorded. You just received an activation from your pendant. Do you have an emergency? I'm not getting a response from you. I'm going to dispatch emergency services now.
White Plains Police. We're here for a welfare check.
Open this door! You're not Help me! I need help!
So the movie, that is the trailer, The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. The movie comes out next Friday, September 17th. And David, actually all of y'all talk about this movie coming out and why people need to see it and where they can see it. Maybe.
Yeah, we're coming out in theaters, in select theaters around the country, as well as VOD on the same day. So, you know, given that we're still in the midst of a pandemic, if you are not in an area where the film is showing theatrically, or if you're, you know, concerned about the state of the pandemic, there are plenty of watch at home options, including iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. Any cable provider in the U.S. will have it. Lots and lots of at-home VOD options, as well as select theaters around the country.
We're in the theaters we're going to be at. Updated yesterday. We're Chicago. We're going to be in Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit. Many theaters in Detroit, Memphis, Los Angeles, New York. Wilmington, Delaware, Rockford, Salt Lake City, Washington, D.C., and then Ottawa in Canada as well.
And Kenny, for the local audience, can you tell everybody where it will be locally?
Locally, it's going to be right here in White Plains this coming Friday at the City Center, right out here on Main Street, right across from the mayor's office.
It's going to have a full run there, so it's going to be there for at least several weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks, and it'll be playing multiple times a day there. And tickets should be on sale hopefully tomorrow with show times and latest Tuesday for that specific theater. We're talking to the theater now, and but it'll have a full run, so there'll be multiple showings a day at that theater.
And I just want to, and I want to really nail home to my audience. It is imperative to come out next weekend on the first weekend, and large numbers, like where it's sold out. You know what I'm saying? To show the importance of this story, because they don't make movies like this because they say we don't want to see movies like this. And now that we have a movie like this, we have to show Hollywood this is something we want to see. You know what I'm saying? We have to come out in numbers. So youth groups and organizations and anybody that's been talking about fighting for criminal justice and Black Lives Matter, they need to hit these theaters around the country, especially locally, in huge numbers. And I just want to put that out there. The first weekend means everything in the movie business.
The opening weekend is incredibly important. Also, you know, we've been told very specifically that if our opening weekend numbers are very good, we'll open in more cities. We'll be in more places throughout the country, which is exactly what we want. We want, the goal the entire time. One of the first things I said to Kenneth is that we want to make your father's story a national story. And that's the best way for us to do that is to get people to come out and support this, and then show that this needs to be in even more theaters.
And we want more. You're absolutely right, AJ. We want more films to be made that ask these important questions about our criminal justice system and how the most vulnerable people in society are treated by the criminal justice system, whether it's people living in low-income areas, people of color, people suffering from mental health challenges, whatever it might be. We want more films like this to be made, and the best way to make that happen is to come out in really, really large numbers. So for anybody who's interested in more information, they can go to killingofkcfilm.com. That's the website for the film. That will have all of our locations, all the theaters listed, as well as all the VOD platforms that the film is going to be available on.
When David says VOD, he means video on demand. So any on demand, so any place that you can rent a movie, it'll be there. So it's on pretty much any on demand service that you have. It'll be available there. We do recommend people see this in theaters because it's the feeling, the impact that you get, or if you do watch it at home in a theater-like setting, try to have a theater-like setting if possible, because it does really add to the impact of the film. But if you just can't wait to watch it, you are able to rent it from home as well.
Absolutely. Mr. Faison, you always played memorable characters throughout the year. How do you go about selecting the roles that you play in the portrayal of you on screen? Because most of your roles, like I said, Coming to America, The Wire, Luke Cage, you always, like Luke Cage, you were that memorable character. I mean, it was about Luke Cage, but you were as big a character as Luke Cage in that, the community came around you when you died. How do you go about picking these roles?
Well, I think to a large degree, those roles pick me because I've been working with a manager for over 50 years who knows the kind of work that I like to do. I like to do things that are significant and things in which we can collaborate on and honest, solid our characters. And those are the roles that are usually presented to me. And it's the way that people kind of see me. And I really have worked hard to establish that. And those roles, they quite often, they just come to me. And I'm very happy to acknowledge and accept them when they do. So,
Dr. Bob, any questions for Frankie? Or?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back and ask Dave a question.
Okay.
Since, so often stories of racial injustice are in fact overlooked in our entertainment complex here in the United States. I'm curious to know what kind of qualities your organization, Gravitas Ventures, brings with them that may allow them to really capitalize on this opportunity and bring it to a stage where I think many of us are quite surprised, and or any particular strategies that you use to shepherd it through the various kind of gatekeepers, such that it could get the kind of release that it in fact has.
Yeah. No, that's an important question. I think all along we have been fortunate that everyone all along, from the development of the script to when we were hiring crew members to shoot the film, everyone from the production assistants that we were hiring all the way up to the director of photography, the assistant director, everyone understood the importance of this story. And I think that they were taking their cues from the passion that Enrico and I felt for it, as well as the passion that they sensed from Kenneth, who they had the opportunity to meet when he came to set. So I think because everyone felt inspired to go above and beyond, I think Gravitas has been the same way. Revelations has been the same way. Not only Morgan, but Laurie McCreary and Gary Lucchese, our other executive producers from Revelations, are very passionate about this film and the message that it sends and the questions that it asks. And Gravitas has really been the same way. They've been incredible to work with. I think that they understand the importance of a film like this, and we're on the same page with them in terms of what we hope comes out of the film, the message that we hope that the film sends, the questions that we hope people walk out of the theater asking. So I think that all along, everybody from Gravitas to Revelations to our company Redbird to the cast and crew of the film back when we were shooting have felt inspired and obligated to go above and beyond the normal call of duty to really make this film as good as it could possibly be, and to give it every possible opportunity to be seen, to get out there in the media, to obtain a theatrical release. I mean, you know, it's never been easy to obtain a theatrical release, but especially during a pandemic, it's extraordinarily difficult. But they felt it was important that the film be seen in theaters. So I think, you know, everyone all along, including Gravitas, has really felt inspired, I think, from their conversation with Kenneth, from reading about the case, from seeing the film, and all the blood, sweat, and tears that were put into it.
Mr. Faison, I know that your publicist said you were going to be here from 7 to 7:30, so I want to respect your time. If you have to go, you're welcome to stay. But I wanted to ask you, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to get out about this film, about this case, that you just want to, you know, get people out to come out and see it?
Well, the only thing I would like to say is that this is a story that's based on the life, and I guess the ending of the life of a true character. And I would invite people to come in and experience through this film what it was like for this man on the other side of that door in his last couple of hours before his life was taken away from him. And I challenge you to not be moved or compelled passionately by this story, because it is really a work of one of us. He's just like, this is a universal story. It can happen to anyone. Anyone could be on the other side of that door. And this is particular to, say, a Black American audience in a way in which he is a Black man and there are white officers on the other side. But law enforcement, they need to become accountable for their actions. And the only way that they can ever become accountable is to actually acknowledge and observe and see the pain that they sometimes send out there by being ill prepared. So I just want people to take a look and let the film speak for itself. I just love the work in the film. I love being able to embody Kenneth Chamberlain, even though it was, like I say, it was the most difficult emotionally, mentally, and physically challenged role that I've done from beginning to middle to end in film. And I just would like for them to be able to share in that passion with me, take the trip, take the journey. So that's all.
Again, like I said, you are welcome to stay, but I know I wanted to be respectful of your time. If you do have to go, I wanted to just thank you for taking the time to appear on our show. I wanted to applaud you again in the powerful performance, and I just can't wait for people to see it, to really see it, and that's hopefully it will definitely push this conversation and continue this necessary conversation. No.
Well, thank you so much. And I do have to go. I have working tomorrow on a different show, so I got to go prepare for that. 5 o'clock in the morning call. But thank you so much. And I will see the rest of you guys when I see you.
We appreciate your time.
Take care, Frankie.
Bye, Frankie.
Kenneth, speak to the audience, Westchester, why they need to come out and support this film, man, and come out and see this film. Talk, tell the people what they.
Well, I think that the main reason people need to come out and support this film, it's another way of standing in solidarity with my family. Letting the powers that be know that, we know what happened and we want to see some type of accountability in the killing of my father. But I also want this to be a message to families that are impacted as well, that stay in the fight. Don't give up. Because you never know what can happen on the back end. And like I said, I mean, AJ, you, Damon, Dr. Bob, all of you have been there. You've seen me on the days that I was smiling, and you've seen the days that I just couldn't stop crying. And I know that there's still many more days that you're going to see those tears in my eyes, but I'm just happy that this film is done, and I want everybody to see it. I mean, please come out. I'm going to try to be at as many showings as I possibly can so people can actually see me there as well. And I mean, the same way we were talking, the same way that we put together buses to go see Panther, we need to try to do that for this as well. I really need your support on this, because it's just another tool to try to get accountability in the killing of my father. For some people, it's a movie. For me, it's my life.
Well said, well said. David, Enrico, any words to the audience out there? Why, encouraging them to see the film? Why they should come out and see this film?
I don't think we can possibly do better than what Kenneth said. He's exactly right. I think if you're not in Westchester County, if you're not in Westchester County or one of the areas where the film is showing theatrically, there's still many, many, many options to watch at home on demand. So check out our website or our social media. It's Killing of KC Film on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have all the information there. We have all the information on our website. But Kenneth's words are really, really the important one. So I echo everything he said.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, you can't say much more than that. I think this is an important story to go see and support. And if for some reason Kenneth's words didn't move you to want to go see, which I don't know who wouldn't, but this is a movie for cinephiles as well. We're getting incredible reviews. We haven't gotten a single negative review. We've won every single festival we've been at. The movie is doing really well. Come see a good film and come support a story that needs to be known. And for those reasons alone, we hope people join us opening weekend and beyond for this film.
Yeah, this is definitely the website is killingofkcfilm.com, right? Okay, because a few people asked, I want to make sure I put that up there. What's next for you guys? What ODO working on next?
We've got quite a bit of things. We have a few television shows that we've developed. We have another 3 screenplays that we've worked on that are finished and ready to go out. And but it's hard to this is the big time for this film. It's hard to focus on anything else but this right now.
Right.
Our company Redbird Entertainment has a plethora of projects. We're working on a few documentaries as well that are very powerful. We've actually talked to Kenneth about one of our television shows in terms of being a voice on it and being someone to help with, because it's very similar to what's going on in the world right now. And we thought he would be a very important figure for that show. So, we want to have a relationship with Kenneth even far past this film, and support this for as far as as long as we can. But really, truly, it what Kenneth said is right. This is accountability for his father is all we can ask for now. But it's making sure that this doesn't continue to happen in this country. And how do we do that? How do we focus on stopping this from happening? And we felt for forever that Kenneth is an incredible voice in that world, and we need to raise his voice up so people can hear it.
Absolutely. Social media for all the social media people as following along with the film, and what is social media for the film?
Yeah, it's at Killing of KC Film on all platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Killing of KC Film. Same as the website.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we tried to keep it all the same, so it's a little bit easy. Killing of KC Film will get you to all the different platforms, anything you need.
Dr. Bob, questions, comments?
Yeah. Kenny, I'm sure for many victims of police brutality here in the United States, your successful effort to produce and distribute a film about your father's life represents an unrealized dream. An unfortunate dream, but nevertheless an unrealized dream. And I'm curious to know, now that you have been able to cast a wide spotlight on the injustice that was done to your dad about a decade or so ago, I'm curious to know, does this better position you to continue the fight, not for justice, as you said on MSNBC, but rather for accountability? What can those of us in the activist community in Westchester County, who often are taking our cues from the efforts that you're making, look forward to you as you continue to press the fight, and maybe hold accountable some of the characters that go unseen, unportrayed on the film, the larger system of criminal justice here in Westchester County?
Well, there's always going to be the push to have the right elected officials in place to hold individuals accountable, because if we don't have them in place, all of this is a waste of time. I mean, we can look right now at the fact that we've had task force put together to reinvent and reimagine what policing can look like in New York, but we haven't seen anything else happen. So what was all of that for? So I'm hoping that, this film, that maybe it can reposition me to be a stronger voice, especially for those families who don't have anybody to turn to. Some of the grassroots organizations that have stood by me, maybe my voice can help, those organizations get out there, and, it'll give a little more power, a little more push to the work that we're doing. I often say that if I could do social justice all day, every day, I would love to do it. So I have put together, outside of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, which was founded after my father was killed, at my job, the Urban League of Westchester, we've also put together the Center for Social Justice and Responsibility. But I also have the Chamberlain Foundation, and that will be my foundation that I will use to go out there, to go to other cities, states, stand with families who are going through this. I just want to be out there. I want to do the work that a lot of organizations claim to do, but they don't. You know, I want to show up for families when some of these other big names don't show up. So I'm hoping that this film is going to put me in a position where I can do all of that. You know, and of course, you know, I'm going to need you, Dr. Bob. So don't go disappearing on me, brother.
I'll try not, Ken. I'll try not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kenneth, I have to say this on a personal note, man. I realized when I think AJ probably first told me about this venture that it would be a considerable uphill climb for you. And not just because of the logistical financial challenges of shepherding a film to fruition, to success, but also, man, because, you know, I marveled at the kind of emotional challenges that I know you had to go through. Oftentimes when we lose a loved one, we're looking to heal as quickly as possible. And in many respects, lay that person to rest and put our hearts and souls to rest as well. But you rejected that easy outlet. And, you know, I wondered how you would handle constantly reliving the experience of losing your father because of your intimate involvement in this film production process. And I'm curious to know what's the connection between bringing the film to fruition and the process of healing and coming to terms with and maybe peace with the loss of your dad.
So, you know, I have not really mourned my father's death because from day one, I've been fighting. Sometimes people like to use the word closure, but I tell them that, you know, there can be no closure. What I hope for is peace of mind eventually. But I'm not, you know, ashamed. I mean, you know, I always speak very candidly. I mean, I tell people I'm an open book when we talk about things like this. And I mean, I lost my father tragically. You know, I also, in the midst of this fight, I lost my daughter in a tragic car accident. And now I am taking care of my mother, who is battling or suffering from stage 4 colon cancer. It's very overwhelming. I do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder because of all of this stuff. I am in therapy. And I'm very thankful that I finally, you know, stopped acting like I was too tough for it. Because it has helped me compartmentalize, to be able to take some things out sometimes and deal with it and then say, okay, let me put that back over there right now. So that is you know, I just wanted people to understand that in these types of fights, you never get closure. You know, you hope for some semblance of peace, some type of peace, but there's never closure. And yes, it's difficult. I think yesterday, when we were at the film festival yesterday, that was the first time that I looked at the ending of the film and I didn't cry. That was the first time. You know, I can't say that that's going to happen all the time because, I mean, even when I first started speaking on here, I began to get a little emotional, but I brought it back in. But it's very hard. It's very hard. I wouldn't want anyone to have to go through the stuff that I'm going through. The loss of my dad, the loss of my child, dealing with the stuff that's going on with my mother. But I mean, look, we know that these things happen, but what's helping me is being in therapy, and I can't deny that. So, you know, I used to be the guy that when they said you should talk to someone, my response was talk to who and about what and why. What can they tell me? You know, but I can definitely say today, you know, I've been in therapy now, I think maybe 2 years. And it's the best thing that I could have done. Because if I don't take care of me, I can't help anybody else. There's no way. I can't do it. So, I mean, I hope that answered your question. I don't know, but I hope it did.
I want to say, and I didn't want to, you brought it up, your daughter. I mean, I was with you that day. We had gone to Brooklyn for you to speak and stand with another family in Brooklyn who was the 1 year anniversary of the killing of their loved one, and then Tish James decided not to press charges or whatever. And it was on the way back that you got confirmation. And I had already had a certain respect for you and how you operated, but I saw another level of strength that day on that trip back, coming back. And you were more concerned with, you know, reaching your children and others so they didn't see it on Facebook. And you know what I'm saying? And being there for them. And again, you have not, and people, and I want to reiterate this, you have not actually had a chance to properly mourn the death of your father. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people understand. Like, that's one thing I truly don't think everyone understands. You have been fighting since day one. You know, everybody else, when they lose a loved one, you know, there's the mourning part, there's the grieving part. You haven't had a chance to even go through those stages fully. You know what I'm saying? And people don't understand. And then you lost your daughter on top of that, and then you're taking care of your mom. So, you know, people don't understand. And I said this to you before. Like, in the beginning, no one could say nothing if you was on some real fuck the police shit afterwards. You know what I'm saying? But you channeled that energy and got into creating the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform and working with police departments for better police community relations. And I think that needs to be applauded. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know you've heard me say, I sound like a broken record to you, but I don't think that you can bang that point home enough. You know, and I said, I can only hope that, I hope I never had to find out, but I only hope that I could rise to the occasion like you did. Because I you know, you was on some real fuck the police shit. No one could blame you. They killed your father, yo. You know what I'm saying? But you were the one calming down the community, say, no, we're not going to handle it like that. When they could have tore down, they could have burned down White Plains. But you were sitting there, nah, we're not going to handle it like that. And I think you need to be applauded for that as well. And your inner strength, your strength keeps me going sometimes when I do this work and I get frustrated and I'm done. And I'm like, yo, how can I give up when this brother won't give up like that? I'm going to keep it real. Like, yo, real talk. Bob will tell you, I've tried to quit this like 10 times. Like, I'm done. I'm done. But I see you and your strength keeps me going. And I just want to say that out loud to you. Real talk, bro.
Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Love it.
We're coming to the close of the show. I want to give each of y'all last words. Anything else to promote the show? And when you speak one more time, date when the movie's playing and where it's playing. David, Enrico, then Kenneth. Last words about the movie or anything that you want to say.
Well, thank you for having us. First of all, this was a really, really great conversation, and I echo everything you just said, AJ, about Kenneth. Is why you know, Enrico and I admire Kenneth so much, and why we've really you know, the example that he has set for not only for people, certainly for people who are fighting for accountability, justice, or for social change, but for anybody. The example that Kenneth sets is such an incredible one. So I echo everything that you said. And the film, the best way to find out about the film is to follow us on social media or go to our website, killingofkcfilm.com. Those are the best ways to find out. September 17th, Friday, a week from, well, I guess less than a week from now, 5 days from now is when it comes out. But thank you for having us.
Yeah, AJ, I couldn't agree with you more on what you said about Kenneth. He really is. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's powerful, we feel very strongly to get him out into the world, and I think he can inspire change, and that's so important. So please support the film, Killing of KC Film. That's the handle at every social media site. Follow us, talk about us, come out and support us. If we're not in a theater near you, rent it and try to watch it at home in a theater-like setting. And the more people that go out, the larger theatrical release we can have as the weeks come on here. So we start in these cities, and if it does well in those cities, it'll continue to expand. So that's what we're hoping for, and we'll see where this all goes. But in the end, we hope it ends with accountability for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s death.
I just want to say this Friday, the 17th, it will be shown in White Plains at the City Center. The theater is City Center Cinema Deluxe. It's 237 Martine Avenue in White Plains, New York. Most people know it as the center, the shopping center that has Target in it, and it's right across from the mayor's office, City Hall. Please come out, support it. Tell a friend to come out. Bring a friend. Come see the movie. I will say, and I'm sure that, I don't know if this was said before, the movie is definitely powerful, and it takes you on a ride, and, you will be emotional at the end. You will most certainly be emotional. And last but not least, as I always close anytime I speak, I just say, may there be accountability for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., and may there be accountability for all families impacted by police violence.
Dr. Bob.
Dave, Enrico, I want to thank you guys for joining us on air and sharing with our viewers the experience of making the film and the journey that you've been on with Kenneth. Ken, it's always good to see you, brother, even despite the challenging circumstances. And I look forward to seeing the film and seeing you sometime during the upcoming week.
I just want to put this out there, real talk. I want to put this out there for all of you out there walking around saying Black Lives Matter, for all of y'all going down to D.C. to march, for all of y'all that wore hoodies for Trayvon Martin and was talking about justice for George Floyd. We have George Floyd's here in Westchester. And everybody needs to go out and support Kenneth Chamberlain in this movie this weekend. Your organizations need to come out in full strength. Like I said, all of y'all that's walking around talking about criminal justice reform, complaining about police brutality, we need to come out and we need to send a signal, not only to Hollywood that this is important, but a signal to these politicians. You understand what I'm saying? This is one of when people say, what can they do? And they're looking for, this is another one of those non-violent things that you can do to speak up for criminal justice reform. Come out in large numbers this weekend. I'm talking about till the theater is sold out. I'm serious about that. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to add extra theaters or something. You know what I'm saying? Yo, and extra showings during the day. You dictate that. You totally dictate that with your dollars. So use your power. Come out. You know what I'm saying? And Kenneth Chamberlain has come out for all of y'all's organizations, all of y'all that are talking about police and community relations, better relations. He comes out, he speaks, y'all call him. He is always there. We all need to come out for him now. I cannot stress that enough. We all need to come out, support him and his family. And that's all I'm going to say on that. I want to thank everybody for coming. Yo, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Y'all could be doing anything else. Y'all decide to ride with us. This is our show 300, our 315th show as we celebrate our 7-year anniversary. You know, Bob and I was talking, Cynthia that used to be on the show, you know, the show's People Before Politics. And we got a lot into the politics and a lot into the politicians and stuff. And as you see, we're trying to get back into the people before the politics and get back to conversations like this that are very important for the movement that we're in right now. So I do want to say, as far as that voting right thing, I always want to stand on this. We need to stand up for the voting rights, for the right to vote. Nothing else, hear me, nothing else you're fighting for will ever get through. You will never accomplish if they can take away your right to vote and make it harder with these voter suppression situations. You understand what I'm saying? We will not get people like Jamal Bowman up there in Congress who's speaking boldly. We will not get the people in there to pass the legislation that we need. You understand what I'm saying? So, yo, fight. And even if we're not at threat as much in New York as they are in some of them, you got family members, you need to tell them to stand up and they need to call their congressmen and get these bills passed. Because, yo, they are trying to strip away all of our rights. All of our rights. You know, that's what they mean when they say make America great again, when we didn't have no rights. So it's a war. It's literally a war. So I really want to leave with that. Everybody should go out and see this film. Thank you, David, for your time. Thank you, Enrico. I want to thank Frankie Faison for gracing us with his presence. Kenneth, as always, you call, we're there. I will see you earlier in the week at the premiere thing. I guess I'll see all of y'all. Yes, go out and support this film. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. We're on every Sunday, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn from 6 to 8. Until next time, peace. You are now tuned into the People Before Politics radio show, brought to you by the good folks at
Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper.
Real talk for the community since 2014.